California.
What's up, YouTube? It's Artisan MC, and today I'm going to review The Tomorrow War starring Chris Pratt on Amazon Prime. Now, The Tomorrow War was first introduced to me by Dr. T. Johnson. Shout out to Dr. T. And I had not saw a trailer or preview or knew anything about this movie when he mentioned it. So, based on his questioning and kind of a recommendation, I went ahead and watched it today since I had some time on a hot day. And in watching this movie, the only thing I knew about it was that Chris Pratt was starring in the movie. I like Chris Pratt. I never watched Parks and Rec, but I like Chris Pratt from the movies that I've seen him in. Most notably as being Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. He's fine, he's funny, and if you guys watch my Sunday Shop Talk Lives, he kind of reminds me of Ford a little bit. He does. It's weird. I was thinking that while I was watching this movie, that he reminds me of Ford a little bit, which is just funny to me. But anyway, you got Chris Pratt in this movie playing the role of Dan Forrester, who is a science teacher, ex-military, and living with his family and trying to get into this program. Now, the program that he's trying to get into is not really important. It is a science-based program that he has an initiative on, but he doesn't actually get into it, right? So, dealing with that little bit of disappointment about that, he's sitting on the couch with his family at like Christmas time watching a soccer game, and during the course of the soccer game, while he's dealing with his disappointment and his wife is kind of comforting him and his daughter is telling him how wonderful he is to her, you get the entrance of a vortex opening up and soldiers coming out that vortex in the middle of the soccer game and being told by the character that shows up that they're from the future, the world is in a war and they're dying, they're being taken over by aliens, and if you don't help, in 30 years, everybody on the planet will be dead. And that is the entrance and the start of the movie. Now, from that onset alone, you guys know if you watched any of my other videos, I like time travel movies. Good time travel movie always gets me because I'm always interested in the idea of how the time travel works and how this whole avoidance of a paradox or something like that is happening. Being that this time travel movie is happening within a set time frame is really interesting because you study a little bit about time travel. The fact that they know 30 years in the past about this future event that's going to happen actually changes that future event. So already kind of skews things. But be that as it may, it's a movie, suspension of disbelief, and we're off and running. Now, the interesting part about this movie is what happens after these people show up. The governments of the world kind of argue a little bit and then come together, believe these people that it's a credible, situation happening, and they start a global draft, which means they are drafting people globally to go into basically this military army to be sent into the future to fight against these aliens and hopefully stave off the extinction of the human race. Now that is a bit interesting to me simply for the fact that at the point this happens in the movie, I'm getting that strong anti-war vibe. Not that I'm against or war and people having their opinion of being against war. It just seems that it seemed a bit stupid to me from the onset, because in the face of, humanity's extinction, I think anti-war protests would be the last thing people would be doing. I just think it would be. That would be the last thing on their mind. But Be that as it may, there's always a dissenting voice, and that voice was there. And after they use all the soldiers they can send into the future and trying to fight this war, and they keep coming up goose eggs, they start sending and drafting regular people. That means regular people like soccer moms, grocery checkers, the dude dumping your garbage. Everybody is conscripted, I guess by lottery, tapped up and sent into the future to fight this damn war, which is a bit interesting because that puts everybody on the hook for what's going on. Everybody has to play a role in what's to happen if the humanity is going to survive, the species is going to survive. So, to move along in the movie, you get Dan Forrester, who actually gets tapped. He gets drafted into this. And at this time, he is just a science teacher. He's a big science nerd. Outside of being ex-military, he's a science nerd. He has his daughter into science. His wife is kind of somebody who deals with soldiers with PTSD and whatnot. So he's kind of wanting to be involved in this, but not, because the way it happens is really, just put it this way, they give no fucks about the people they conscript into this. They really don't have any time to be parsing with people and being all nice about it. Your number came up, you actually fit the thing, you getting this genetic tracker time bracelet slapped on you, and you off and running. That's just what it is. It's not about you liking it or being cool with it. It's just what's going to be happening. And from that, you meet a lot of other interesting characters in this. So one of the first characters you meet in this is the character of Charlie, played by Sam Richardson. Now, I don't know Sam Richardson from anything, but being some of the stuff I was listening to today, you get to see that he wrote and directed Veep, which is interesting for what's going on with Kamala Harris right now. Other characters that you meet are the character of Dorian, which is played by Edwin Hodge, and Dorian is a red shirted brother who has done this multiple times. This is like his third tour into the future to fight these aliens. And it's fair to say at this point that a lot of people that go into the future to fight these aliens do not come back. A lot of them do not come back at all. It's fucking catastrophic. Okay, they're taking losses like nobody's believed. The other character that goes back into, or goes to the future with him, is the character of Nora, played by Mary Lynn Rajakush. Mary Lynn Rajakush. I think that's how you say her name. And this is a familiar face to me that I haven't seen in a while. And this character, this actress, she was Chloe on 24. If you remember the show with Kiefer Sutherland, 24, and his tech person that was back at the CTU, it was that Chloe. So she was in this movie, and I was like, oh, that was a good surprise. I wasn't even expecting that necessarily. The other role that was more of a surprise to me, that happens a little before this scene where Chris Pratt's character Dan Forrester is going to go back or go forward in the time, is when he goes to meet his father. And his father is none other than J.K. Simmons. Now, this is something that surprised the hell out of me because I wasn't expecting J.K. Simmons in this movie at all. Mind you, I don't know who's in this movie outside of Chris Pratt. Have not seen a trailer, don't know anything about what's happening in this movie whatsoever. I'm watching it cold. Just straight cold. I'm watching this movie. So when I saw J.K. Simmons, I was like happy, like, oh shit. We're about to get some whiplash in this. I'm good with that, right? Now, a lot of the stuff that happens between Dan Forrester and J.K. Simmons' character of James Forrester is the fact that Dan's father, James, left for some reason. He was into some stuff, and he walked away from his family and left his son alone. Left his son and his wife. You don't know why, but because of that, the son has a problem with the dad. And this points out one of the most interesting lines in this whole thing to me is that J.K. Simmons' character points out that his son had no business and doesn't know what was going on between him and his mother. He doesn't. So he has no room to talk. And this was a valid point that I have pointed out numerous times to some people about you do not know the relationship between your mother and father, and you should not be taking sides in that when it doesn't work. Because you don't know. You don't know what their relationship was outside of what you saw. So you really should keep your mouth shut about it. You not like it, but you don't know. Because you're not in a relationship with it. You're just watching. So that was an interesting part. Now, you get up to the scene where these characters are going into the future. I like the special effects on how they travel into the future. The movie doesn't spend a lot of time explaining exactly how it works, which is fine. It doesn't need to. I'm smart enough to understand this is time travel and it's a movie. It works some kind of way. But how it looks is what's more important to me because I like the visual on it. The effect they use for the time travel and how it works is really interesting, where the people are actually lifted off the ground as they dematerialize and go into this vortex and then are transported into the future. Now, when Dan Forrester's team goes into the future, something goes wrong. So horribly wrong that instead of falling like 2 or 3 feet or 5 or 10 feet above the surface of, where they're supposed to land, these people are falling out of the sky over Miami. And a lot of them die right off the bat because they are busting their heads and breaking their backs, falling down above skyscrapers. Tragic, right? Kind of explains why so many people are dying doing these missions. They ain't worked out some of the bugs yet. So, be that as it may, these people land in Miami, and instead of just being the research team, they are now the search and rescue team for a group of scientists that are there. And now they have to get down the building and go find these people to retrieve them. Now, this is one of the things that's interesting about this movie to me is that I see a lot of other movies within it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because of how they did it. Because at this point, when they land on the roof of this building and they now have to go down through what is a war zone with these creatures down there that they haven't seen yet, it reminds me of Escape from New York, where Snake Plissken lands on the top of the highest building and now he has to go down into this fray to rescue the president. In a sense, that's exactly what they're doing. So it reminded me of Escape from New York and the Suicide Squad. Now, that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just something because I've seen a lot of movies, a lot of these tropes come up and remind me, and I make associations to other movies. Now, once they get down to the street level, you get, Chris Pratt falling on his military experience and the character of Dorian falling on his experience, actually coming out and being the alphas of the point in this group, where they are leading the group throughout the rest of the town, or the city of Miami, in the future to go rescue these scientists. Now, once they get into the building to rescue the scientists, you start seeing signs of these creatures and struggles and how they actually kill people. The other thing that you find out is that on their comm, they are talking to a colonel, and the colonel is a female. And the female colonel is actually directing this team and talking directly to Dan in his earpiece to tell them where to go and what they're supposed to be retrieving. And once they get to this complex, all the researchers are dead, but she still wants them to find the vials of this ampules, which are a sort of toxin that they have developed to kill these creatures. Now, these are important, so they need to get them out of this complex before the airstrike comes in. That is inbound and on the way. Now, this sets up the tension for the push for these characters to get moving, but it also sets up the tension and the push for these characters to run into the creatures of this movie, the white spines, as they call them. Now, I'll say this about the white spines when you finally get a full look at them. These are some messed up creatures. They look pretty cool. They look really cool, in a sense, right? But not cool in the way that you're going to survive. These things are fast, they're big, they're agile, they're sort of bulletproof for some things, and they got some long-range offensive armaments that make them a problem for you to deal with from a distance. And when they get up on you, it's all business, no games, because they eat meat. They eat meat, so I ain't got a lot of soft spots. So they're a problem. They're legit a problem. And I like seeing them on the screen, because when they're on the screen, it's a lot of frantic action happening with things moving all over the place very quickly, because the creatures themselves are quick. And so that makes the characters themselves have to do a lot of running and gunning to get away from these things. And as an editorial note, I will say they needed some heavier weapons in this shit. I'm telling you, they needed some heavier goddamn weapons. All these new people that went on this Into the Future mission with Dan, they all got these little machine guns. And these little machine guns ain't really doing shit against these characters. Now, it's CG, but you get the idea. They're not doing much damage. The ones that's doing damage is Dorian with his shotgun. He's the only one who got it on the up and up that you need some real stopping power. Okay? Everybody else just pissing these things off. So, had it been me, I'd be looking for some heavier weapons. They should have sent them with some better weapons. I'm just saying. But beyond that, you get the first action scene with these characters fighting these creatures, and people die right off the bat, just like they died when they was falling out of the sky. They die and fight these damn creatures. It's they're getting overrun, okay? And for me, watching this, that overrun reminded me of a video game, Starcraft, that I love. It looks like a Zerg rush. If you've ever played the game Starcraft, it's made by Blizzard. You can find it and get it for free. It's fun. It looks like a damn Zerg rush, and a Zerg rush is not fun. Zergs are assholes. They eat everything. They just keep coming. And these creatures, these white spines in this movie, just keep coming. All the way to the end. They keep coming. These creatures give no fucks. Plain and simple. They don't care. So, from there, they get out of that scene, and you get to Dan Forster getting to meet this colonel, and there is a particular connection between Dan and this colonel. I don't want to spoil it completely, and saying that might be saying too much, but there's a connection between these two characters. Okay? And from that point on, Dan works with the colonel and finds out what the situation is and what they're trying to do. And basically, they're trying to make this toxin because the male creatures, which is predominantly most of them, die to this, but there is a female queen that is kind of immune to it. So they're trying to capture this queen to figure out what it is that she has in her that's making her immune to these toxins so they can kill the rest of these damn creatures. And that's all well and good. It's all well and good. That's what you need to do, right? So from there, you get the rest of the story with Dan, Colonel Miri, played by Yvonne Strakovsky, Australian chick. She's kind of cute. Kind of cute chick. I liked her in this movie. This is the first movie that I can recall seeing her in, but I kind of liked her. She was getting it up. She was shooting her guns, and they got a couple of good action scenes where you see her just letting off, and it's her. It's not a stand-in. It's not a stunt double. She's in there holding this weapon and cycling her weapon through. I like that kind of shit. I like realism in my movies as much as possible. And if actors and actresses actually do their own stunts and stuff like that, I'm all for it. I'd love to be an actor so I can get some of that training because I might be too old for the military now. But from there, you get them capturing one of these queens or capturing this queen and get to see them develop this serum, right? Or develop this toxin. And you get a lot more story between these characters and what this mission actually means. Like, this is the end all be all. This is it. This is the final push. This is Judgment Day, like in the Terminator shit. Okay, this is the end. This either works or humanity is done for. From here, I get the feeling of a couple of other movies that come to mind while I'm watching this. Because of how the aliens look, in a sense, it almost looks like some alien stuff, right? You know, James Cameron's Aliens, right? Kind of gives me that feel. Some of the other stuff I see in it kind of gives me that Prometheus feel. And this is what I'm saying. There's scenes in here that give me the feel of other movies. And one of the ones that was strongest in it was the Interstellar feel. If you've ever seen Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, gave me that feel hard in here. And if you watch that movie and you've seen this movie, you'll understand what connection I'm making there. But it's a lot of different feels in this movie, but it still feels like its own thing. Like, it harkens back and makes the connection to one thing for me, but it still feels like its own thing. So it comes and goes, right? So you get to the midpoint in this movie, and by some other hook and a crook and some other battle scenes, Dan Forrester ends up being ripped back into present day. That he goes backwards in time and goes back. And at this point, where you would think the movie is over, it's not over. It's still going. Now, this is the part that was a little bit off-putting for me because I was really thinking that the movie was over at this point, and it wasn't. There was still more to say. Now, although the movie is only 139 minutes, which is not really that long in today's terms, at that point it did feel really long. And so this last part of the movie, where he's back in time, trying to do some stuff to prevent this war from happening 30 years into the future, it seems really long, but there's a lot of good action and story in it. And I will just say at this point, just to not spoil the movie completely, but I will tell you this, black geeks save the world. Okay? Black nerds save the world. Remember that shit. People that look like me saved your asses. And that's one of the good things about this movie that I can say. It's littered with black people. It's littered with black men and whatnot in this movie. Some funny roles, some serious roles, but for the most part, it's littered with black folks in this movie. The other thing I will say about this movie is that it's littered with females. If you have a problem seeing women in a position of authority, you're going to be pissed off of watching this movie. You're going to really think it's some gynocentric stuff. Possibly it is. But how it's done, you can make the argument like, well, who else would be there? Some scenes, no. You wouldn't say that. You're like, why the fuck would she be there? But mostly it's just there. It's not overly anything. If you've been paying attention to society right now, this is the push, so it's everywhere. It shouldn't be overly shocking to you now, and that's part of the desensitization process of it all. It's so much in your face now that you can't watch a movie without seeing the shit. It's just there. It's just an accepted norm now. So for the ending of this movie, I won't spoil. There is an ending. Do I think they could do a sequel to this movie? Yes, there could be a sequel to this. And not because they laid it out there. Just because I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking where they could take a story a little bit further. And this is the part at the end gets into that whole Prometheus vibe of the movie. Like, you could go a little bit further with this if you wanted to. If you wanted to. And from the looks of how this movie is doing, it's doing really well. For not having much fanfare coming out, people are really enjoying this damn movie. So I don't know what that says outside of the fact that Amazon's money was well spent, because it looks good, the action was good, the story moved along, and I was entertained and engrossed in the story the whole time I was watching it. So maybe they do get a sequel, maybe they don't. I don't know. Either way, the Tomorrow War, I enjoyed. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I would watch it again. It's a good Sunday binge movie if you just want to watch some action one day. Pop that shit in and watch it. You'll be entertained for like two hours and some change. What else you got to do? So that's it. That's my review of the Tomorrow War with Chris Pratt. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.
You want to tell it to me?
We can't wait, but it's all an illusion.